Welcome to the Tackle Your Feelings podcast with me, Dr. Hannah McCormack. Tackle Your Feelings is a positive mental well-being campaign brought to you by Rugby Players Ireland in partnership with Zurich Ireland and the Z Zurich Foundation. We want you to rethink how you might approach your own positive mental well-being. With our guests, we will cover a range of topics: confidence, mindsets, life experiences that shape and mould who they are. What makes them more than a player? And joining me on the couch today, we have two very special guests. We have sisters, which is very exciting. First, we have Eimear and Ailish Considine, winger and back for Ireland, and her club is UL Bows down in Limerick. Eimear actually played sevens first in 2013, and then it wasn't until 2017 that you moved over to 15s, and it was when I was doing my little kind of like, who is Eimear and what has she done? I didn't realise you played for Ireland before you played for your club.
Yes, yeah.
Which is
mental. I did it all backwards.
Yeah. And you're also a previous Clare County Gaelic football and camogie player, a dual player, and you also work as a school teacher and presenter. So very busy lady. And then our second guest is Ailish, who is Eimear's little sister. I'm sure you love being referred to as that. And Ailish has been playing Aussie rules in Adelaide since 2018. Is that right? She went over for 5 whole seasons, which I was actually really surprised at. I didn't think it was that long, but yeah, 5 whole seasons. Also, obviously, both of you are from County Clare. So Ailish, you were also a dual player, camogie and football. And you have a degree in exercise science and fitness. Is that right?
Yes.
Great. So some really impressive people from a really impressive family sitting on the couch here.
It's good to know the Wikipedia is up to date.
I know.
I was Googling
for a while. I'd be lost without it, to be fair.
Thank God.
Because you're like, I know these people. I don't need to have these stats. And then you're like, well, actually, no. Like for you, I was like, oh, Ailish has been in Adelaide for 2 years. And then it's like 2 years since the last time I saw you. So you've been there for a little bit longer.
It's absolutely flown by. Like, even when I signed in 2018, I was like, wow, that seems like only yesterday, and now it's like 5 seasons later, and it's just mad to think.
2 premierships later.
2 premierships and 3 grand finals. It's crazy journey.
Time moves in like incredible ways. So one of the first questions I always ask our guests is how they got into their sport, and obviously, Ailish, you're the first person who isn't a rugby player on the couch.
Oval ball, close enough.
Yeah, exactly. Same. So I'll actually ask you, how did that transition? I know a lot of people go from Gaelic football into AFL, but how did the transition from being here in Ireland, being signed for AFL, going all the way over, like where did that come from? What happened there?
Where did it come from? Yeah, it was a very kind of short journey that led into the AFL over. It kind of all started here with a guy called Mike Curran who ran the AFL Ireland in here and within Europe, and they kind of randomly started a tournament here in Dublin just for people to give it a try and do something different. And I came along because Mike is from Kilmahall, and his sister Rosie just grabbed a few of us together to make a team, and that was kind of the first introduction, the first time I touched the Sharon, and like the first time I actually had anything to do with AFL. And from there, we played a couple of tournaments within Dublin, and we went over to Amsterdam for the Euros, and we won that because we were just a group of Gaelic footballers adapting our sport to theirs, and we were just, we had the basic skills. So, and then this cross-coders camp got set up by Jason Hill and Lawrence Spark, who played with the Bulldogs at the time. And they were looking for international talent, and they brought over, I think, 18 girls to Melbourne for trials. And, not every team from the AFL were there, but a couple of teams were, and Adelaide were one of them. And they, in fairness, had a really good presentation and about their team, and probably were the least well known as a club from this side of the world, because no one knows where Adelaide is. It's kind of Australia's best kept secret. But yeah, honestly, when I went over, because Eimear had been in Sydney, my eyes were kind of set on maybe going to Sydney as an option. And then when Adelaide came up and offered a contract, it just felt right straight away. And I obviously took it. I was like, they're offering me something, I'm going to take it straight away. So I did, and it kind of went from there. And they flew me to Adelaide for a day, and they showed me the club, and they showed me. I met one or two of the girls at the time that I didn't even know who they were, but like I got to know them so well after that. And then, yeah, I had I think a month to come home, pack up my stuff and everything, and then fly over to Adelaide and start the journey as it was over the past 5 seasons. So.
Mum's worst fear was, how do we console Ailish after coming back from Australia when she doesn't get offered anything? Like, Mum was like, oh, how are we going to, like, Mum thought, like, this is just a random opportunity. She'll go over and she'll come home just as quick as she went over. But you rang me at like 3 o'clock in the morning, our time, because it was the time difference, and you're like, I got offered a contract, and I was like, trying not to roar the house down with it. But I think you were just as surprised as we were.
I went out there to take off Australia off the list. As a holiday destination, because I was like, I'll never get there because football and Camogie just go all year round. There's no break, so I won't get a chance to travel. So I honestly didn't expect anything to come from that, and the fact that there was, interest from Adelaide was crazy.
Yeah. And Eimear, you also had like a not straightforward journey into rugby. So even though it happened a couple of years before Ailish's not so straightforward journey into AFL, you went straight into playing sevens. So what kind of encouraged you to get onto the seven scene, get into rugby, like having played Gaelic and Camogie? Again, loads of transferable skills, as we know from Ailish's experience, but you were that was like 5 years earlier, you tried a completely different sport. What was that? How did that happen, and what was that like?
Yeah, I think me moving into a random sport from Gaelic and Camogie helped you actually as well, because we were able to like bounce off each other and figure out like, well, this was hard and this was hard, and even though we're athletic, the skills and the game understanding were like completely different to us. But I was living in Dublin, I was playing Camogie and football for Clare, travelling up and down 3-4 times a week, and I suppose got to a stage where it was just a lot to do on top of a full-time job. And they were scouting talent similar like that from girls from other, I suppose, sports. And at the time, because sevens was in the Olympics for the first time in 2016, and there wasn't, I suppose, a player pool of players. And me, along with, like, I know Louise Galvin came at the time, Lucy Mulhall, Stacey Flood, like the girls who were, stalwarts of the sevens programme since, came over from other sports. And that was, I suppose, what they did at the time, was just transfer over the skills. And I said, look, I'll try it. And if it's awful, if it's awful, I'll just go back to Camogie and football. I had the safety net of still being able to play a sport. I wasn't giving up my football and Camogie life just for rugby. I always could go back to it. And it wasn't easy. And there were so many times I did contemplate going back to Gaelic and Camogie because I was bad at something. Like, I was really bad at the start. And even though we'd watched rugby and we were big Munster fans, I didn't understand the game, and when I went to play it, I realised just how little I knew. And I think I look back now and realise, oh my God, I knew nothing. Yeah. And still, like, you're learning.
Yeah.
But I never, like, we grew up in a little tiny village in West Clare, Kilmahill, and we never, like, set sights on AFL or rugby or playing internationally. Like, I've said before in plenty of interviews, if I ever imagined playing for Ireland, it would have been through athletics, because that was kind of what I was at underage, and it was my only opportunity to play for Ireland, because for Camogie and football you can't play for Ireland. So it was a dream that I never imagined, because I didn't think it was possible to be from West Clare and actually be able to play rugby. And like you said, I played rugby first for Ireland before I played for a club. So I went from Gaelic football to sevens. And my first tournament was in San Diego with the sevens team playing against Canada and USA, who were like seeded number 1 and 2 at the time. Mental. And then came back and played inter-pros, and then played again with Bows, and then went and got called onto the Irish 15 squad in 2017, the year of the World Cup, and was part of that World Cup squad that was in Ireland, and I've been part of the squad since. So it's been like an up and down route, and it wasn't straightforward, and I suppose the pathways are now being put in place for players to get to the level I got to through rugby, which is fantastic to see. But it was definitely unorthodox the way that I did it.
But it's interesting because, like, you even mentioned there that, the pathways are set now. But even if you go back to when you guys were growing up, and even, I think I'm a little bit older than you, but like women and girls playing sport back then, when we were kids, you were, at least where I grew up, it was more, an unusual thing, and it may have been the school that I went to. It may have just been like I did athletics, I played camogie, I tried to play camogie, not very well. And around the age of 15, I stopped playing most sports, and it wasn't until I went back to college and I picked up more sports, and actually that's where I started playing rugby. But what was the kind of sporting? Was there much sporting encouragement in your community? What do you think brought you into sport? Was it from home? What were your kind of inspirations there?
Yeah, I think
we were lucky.
Yeah, I think our club, we always had an underage football team. Hurling kind of came in and out through the schools program that we had, but we always had football. That was kind of our mainstay, and we even played with the boys all the way up along. We played with the boys for hurling as well when that was introduced into our club, because we're mainly football club in West Clare. But I think we had the opportunity in terms of a structured club to actually go and train and play with them. We had 2 coaches that were nearly coaching the entire parish at that stage, Rose Dorrigan and Marie Egan, who did it all the way up along, and
they coached every girls team. Yeah, Marie's still coaching, but it was a mixture of the structures were there for Gaelic football, but also our family was really into it. Like our brother used to make us play with him out the backyard. Our 3 cousins played for Clare at the time. So we grew up looking at ladies football and going to their matches, and like the media was very different then in that there was no social media. I'm sure women's games weren't in the papers as often as they are now. No. So we used to go to those games because our cousins were playing, but also Keith played for Clare and our brother played for Clare as well, and our weekends were spent going to their matches. So we, I suppose, grew up wanting to be with them, wanting to play for Clare, wanting to support our brother and our cousins. And our mum would have played sport as well underage. She played camogie, and her sister Maureen, our auntie, would have played for Clare for camogie back in an era where women didn't really won in All Ireland, where women didn't really play sport. So I think we were very lucky in the family that we were into, but also in the community that we were into, that it never was an obstacle. There probably was more opportunities for men to play and boys to play sport, but we were happy with our football and our athletics, and we didn't know any different.
Yeah. And is there a difference in Australia with the attitude to women's sports? I know there was a lot of controversy a couple of years ago over a photo that was going around of one of your, and obviously we know that there's some attitudes towards women's rugby that we'd love to, reverse, or it's an ongoing process. And I like the fact that it's a process moving forward, but is there a difference in Australia, do you think, or?
A little bit. I think since the introduction of the AFLW competition, there's certainly been a broader view of women's sport and how, impactful it can be. I think even in the first, 2 years of the sport of AFLW actually run their comp, I think they had a 300% increase in women's football clubs around all of Australia. So like the massive impact that they've had community-wise and for girls having pathways. But I think the more professional it's becoming and more that it's gearing towards full-time, which is, within the next 5 years, it is certainly going to be scrutinised more. And I think that's a pro and a con, because I think the men's game is highly scrutinised, and because of the level that it's at and the extremely high wages that they earn, it's I guess on par when women's sport does come to that in Australia. You will be scrutinised more because there's bigger financial gain and bigger interest from a broader community. But I think the AFLW have done it really, really well in terms of they've really put their broadcasting and their advertising towards people that want the game to grow. And I think they have probably learned that you're not going to change the attitudes of, people that are of a certain generation or of a certain view. And what you need to target is the new generations coming through and the people that are willing to change and willing to have an open mind, because you're kind of wasting your breath really with a certain minority of people that don't believe that women should be playing sport full stop, not to talk about contact sport. So I think the AFL have really pushed what they have and tried to grow the game as quickly as they can by, showing the best of what they have, and it's, they've really had an open mind, and the AFL have pumped.
I think they've taken a financial cut originally to show it off and to put you on the big stage and to make you full-time, part-time professionals, and the wages are increasing year by year, but they took a massive cut at the start and a gamble at the start of the AFLW, I suppose, season.
They were certainly willing to take a financial hit because they knew, in the early years of the game, it's not going to make a hell of a lot of money at the start. And to be fair, they've introduced an awful lot of new sponsors that were not a part of the men's game. And I think the AFL have looked at that and have seen that there is value within women's sport. And I think, like being able to take that hit and, seeing the future that can be there, and just, the equality for both male and female to have the same opportunity. I think it was something that the AFL, can be commended for, and how they've really pushed this to be an equal kind of standard.
And even the grand final that she won in 2019, myself, my mum and my brother went over for the weekend to watch it, which is crazy, but I'm so glad we did. But the entry fee into the final, into the Adelaide Oval, which is like a 60,000 capacity, was free. It was free entry in, but there was like 56,000 people at it. It was completely, by the end of the game, the whole oval was completely full. For a standalone women's game to have that crowd. And yes, it was free, but the AFL were like, look, we're willing to open it up to the world, to have more people to come in, to make the atmosphere and the spectacle of a grand final amazing. And they took a massive financial cut to do that. But it was phenomenal, the atmosphere.
Yeah.
And is that, what's it like? Because like, you guys, again, you grew up watching women play sport. You had a lot of like really positive role models in it. Now you're potentially seen as role models for a lot of young girls, because we are now in the age where things are being publicized and things are being advertised, and female athletes are being, they can't see, can't be. But for you guys personally, is there a mixture of emotions that comes with that? Because one, there must be a lot of pride in being, held up as an example, held up as like the Considine sisters, or individually, obviously, in your own respective sports. But is there frustration that there's still quite a bit to go? Like the financial hits that the AFL have taken, women's rugby's only just gotten professional contracts in Ireland. Like, what are the emotions that kind of go around with that?
There's a lot in that there. With the role models thing, I suppose you don't realise how much role model you are until, and I think Ireland, we're a very funny nation. We don't give people compliments. It's not often you get a compliment until like you're leaving, or until, you do, and then it's lovely. But like I'm obviously a teacher, and I teach an all-girls school, and half the time I don't think they know what I do. They think I'm gone on holidays every time I play a Six Nations game. And for the World Cup qualifiers there last year in Italy, when I was gone for 3 weeks, I think they thought I was sunning myself in Italy. But there's a cohort of girls that know what you're doing, appreciate what you're doing. And like at the end of the year or Christmas, or when they're leaving the school finally after 6 years, you get lovely notes and cards that they don't tell you about for the 5 years or 6 years you've taught them. And you realise just how much of an impact that you've had on them in relation to not just a teacher, but as in a sporting career, and being able to balance the professional lifestyle of a professional athlete while working. So it is nice to know that. But then I suppose there's the added pressures of it too, because you are constantly looking to see, like we were in the gym the last day, last week, and 2 ladies came up to us talking about, oh, we know everything you do, and you're home from Australia and you're still playing rugby, and like they know you, and there's like how many people, you're always been watched, especially when we're, I suppose, at home, because we are the Considine sisters, like we kind of go as a pair. So there's, I suppose, that added pressure of knowing the people are watching, and then what you're doing is been not scrutinized, but it's almost like that you are a role model for people, whatever age you are, because the Considine sisters kind of come as a pair.
Yeah.
And is that, like, how do you manage that pressure? Like, what is, because, there is a little bit of anonymity, I suppose, in Dublin. There's obviously anonymity.
A lot in Adelaide.
Yeah. Sure, people don't know where Adelaide is, let alone.
They don't even know where I am.
Yeah, so,
in any country in the world.
But, like, how do you deal with that pressure? Like you said before, you kind of were able to talk to each other about, that transition into the sport. Is there a conversation that goes between the two of you that is like, you'll never guess who said such and such to me today, or someone came up to me, or anything like that? Or
I suppose it's like a mixture of the social media thing as well, and that what you see on social media isn't always the real thing. And especially for, me as a full-time teacher, that's my job. At the end of the day, that's my job. I'm not paid to be an athlete. So when it comes to my content on social media, it's like, it's very boring, do you know? And then the odd time you happen to do one nice thing, you put it up, but it's not real either. Do you know? I think that's social media is a kind of, it ties into that. That's probably the hardest part of it, is the expectations of others around like Six Nations or training or gym programs and sponsorship deals or partnerships that you have to put that up, because it's kind of fake. You know, it's not my real life, and I suppose it's just
we have
it's
a
a balance.
life, but we don't share our private. While we have public Instagrams and whatever that may be, but it's only like a tenth of what actually happens in our life. Like I'm at the gym pretty much every day. Like I'm doing a run session 3-4 times a week. It's like, but like you don't see that, or like you don't see that. And I guess I haven't really been home that much, only a little bit, I guess, in between seasons and stuff. So I guess I haven't really adjusted to the, people knowing a lot about you. I've had the anonymity, or however you say it, in Adelaide for, the majority of the 12 months of the year. So I guess when I come home, I kind of forget a little bit what it's like, people knowing everything about you, or people recognizing you, especially when you're at home on the streets and, just kind of bumping into people that you know here, there and everywhere. You kind of forget what it's like to be back in that situation.
Yeah. And sport is so important where we're from that it's like, I'm not saying that we're getting big-headed about people knowing us, like not everyone does, but if you're in the sporting world in Clare, because of our GAA background, and then I suppose the fact that you've gone the world stage and I'm playing for Ireland, it's just, you're a bit more recognisable, and sport is, I suppose, very important to a lot of people's lives. But it's, to answer the second part of the question, which was about the
like the frustrations.
It's good to see that it's going in the right direction. I think for women's sport, I think as I'm teaching an all-girls school, I've been there for 10 years, and I see that it is getting better through the media, through the 2020 campaign, through, I suppose, more people have been more vocal about it, about, not just sitting down when things aren't right. It's like, no, this isn't right. There's an inequality here, so let's just address it, as opposed to just sit down and be quiet. I think that's the difference. And people are seeing the value of how good the sport can be, whether it's Gaelic football, camogie, soccer, rugby, AFL. People are actually seeing, my God, the skills are good. They're very similar to what the men do, but it's more just awareness because it's out there more. It has a long way to go, and I even saw an article the other day on Twitter about like a lack of coverage in the papers about women's sport, and it was a big final. I'm not sure which final it was, but I suppose if you compare it to the men's finals, it probably would have got a whole lot more coverage. But again, there's still people fighting for it. So the AFLW are probably ahead of the IRFU, but the IRFU are getting there. They're making the process, and it's not going to happen overnight. With like they were successful in the AFL with pumping money into the top down, whereas I think the IRFU were going the bottom up.
Yeah.
So we will see the fruits of it very soon. And even like I said plenty of times, I never even imagined in my time playing rugby that there would be professional contracts. So it's still a great step forward.
Yeah. And even just, so speaking of role models then, like you kind of mentioned your mum, your aunt winning All Ireland medals, your cousins playing. Who were your other kind of role models growing up? And who would your role models be now?
I suppose growing up, we probably looked at that Clare football team.
Yeah, I know, it's mad. They were like one in Western final.
So they won. They were senior at the time, and our three cousins were playing on that team. But they just, and we went to every game. And
we used to have a little autograph book.
Yeah, I used to send it into our cousins into the dressing room so that everyone would sign it, so we'd have it. And we went to every game.
Obsessed.
And any training session that would have been on, like locally, like we'd go collect footballs, or we'd be there, or we'd be in for all the team photos if we could squeeze in at all possible. Like we really looked up to those girls and what they did. We probably didn't take an ounce of notice what football they were playing because of that age.
No,
we probably
we didn't
really
care
know what was happening, but they were just so. We just followed them and just looked up to them so
much. And
every
time every match we'd go to and they'd sign our autograph book. They probably signed it 5 times that year. Yeah. But the more that we met them, the nicer they were, and they were like, "Oh, we'll see you at the next match," and they were just really, they gave of their time as well, which is funny. Like, and
we just wanted to be like them. Like when we grew up, we wanted to be playing for Clare like they did.
There wasn't very many other female role models around, and I suppose it wasn't on TV. I obviously had an athletics background, so Sonia Sullivan was probably the only person that even made it onto a TV screen that was a female athlete.
Yeah.
But she won silver in the Olympics. Like, you shouldn't have to win an Olympic silver medal to make it onto the TV. So what hope had the Clare Ladies footballers of making it on TV at the time? So, you know, it just showed that you had to be, if you were a female, you had to be ridiculously successful to make it onto the TV screens at the time, which is, I'm glad it's changed. You don't have to win medals to be on the TV screens. But yeah, I suppose we lacked in the female role models. We went to the girls' games, obviously, and then our brother played for Clare as well, underage. So we used to follow him around and go to his matches growing up. And that's probably where our kind of love of sport came from.
Yeah, and probably the drive to, you know, that ambition, that dream to play for
and I
Clare
think
is probably where that came from.
One of the girls on the Clare team actually wrote in our autograph book, "I hope to see you play for Clare someday," which was kind of like, oh my God, we could play for, it was like the eye-opening that we could actually play for Clare, and that almost written down made us aspire to want to play for Clare, because she wrote it down in an autograph book. So something so little had so much significance on us.
Such a big impact on your goals and your beliefs in yourselves even.
Yeah. Like, it was not there was no goal there, say, play rugby for Ireland.
Yeah.
or play AFL.
Or play AFL professionally.
Yeah.
Because being a professional athlete was not even an option for a woman.
And how about now? Are there any people that you look up to, like, even if it's teammates or other, or even competitors that you have, who you're kind of like the attitude or the drive or just their approach to things that you kind of really admire? You can say each other if you want.
I was going to say, Ailish makes me train, which is great. Yeah, like, Ailish hasn't had like the smoothest of transitions to the top, in that you probably always lived in my shadow, but then you overtook me. you overtook me, and you became a professional athlete, which is, I suppose, if you had to have money on which one of us was going to be a pro athlete, you probably wouldn't have picked Ailish.
No, you would pick you.
But I think you just worked really hard at it, and worked at, like, you always had the skill. You just never had the, I suppose, mindset to want to. You were always happy just being there in the background. So I suppose you just kind of not that you're not an inspiration to me, but I think it's a more inspirational story. And Ailish came into my school recently to chat about her story, and it wasn't I trained and I made every team underage. She didn't make any teams underage. So I think you're for younger girls growing up who think that they're not the best right now, it doesn't mean that you can't be the best in time.
Yeah.
Because you didn't make underage teams. You were the sub goalkeeper for the under 16 Clare team.
The first time wearing the number 16.
Yeah, and then when she got the number 16 jersey as a professional contract, I was like, the irony of it, because she wasn't good enough to even start, and then she was the sub keeper, not even the outfield player. So I think that's inspirational, and especially for younger girls growing up, that like you might not peak just yet, but that there is still absolute, if it's something that you want, if that goal is written down, like we had in our autograph books that you will play for Clare someday, like there is like you eventually got to senior rank and started, but she didn't always start, which is it's a nice lesson for people out there. And I know there's lots of other men, like I think Henry Shefflin was the same. He didn't make any underage teams when he was playing, and they're just kind of nicer stories, you know. People don't really care about the people who were good all the time and made it to the top and that, but it's a nicer story to hear that it is possible.
Oh, absolutely, because I think there are so many people out there who they think they have to be, you know, the best from the beginning. And like you have was on the radio on the way in, Tiger Woods' son was playing with him this weekend. They were saying 13-year-old child prodigy, blah, 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 blah. And you're like, big things are expected. And sometimes when you're a kid, if you don't have the talent then, it can be very easy. Like I said, I was 15. Now I went to a school that was very musically inclined. So it was kind of, sport was a secondary thing. And I think that had an influence on me kind of stopping sport for a while. But and I had grown up playing loads of sport, so I knew I was always going to go back to it. But I can imagine there are lots of people who maybe, you know, go in, haven't had a background in sport and never get into it. Or, you know, I wasn't the best at different things, but I wanted to do it because I enjoyed it. So like knowing that there are stories out there of people who can get to the top, but you don't have to be that child prodigy. You don't have to have like 50 million gold medals in your childhood bedroom to show.
And that it's not too late. Like you said, you were 15 when you dropped out of sport, and then you went back when you were in college. I was 23 taking up rugby. You were 20 what? Taking up AFL. Like,
6 or
I have girls in school that with COVID, I suppose it caused a lot of dropout, and especially, well, across the board, not just men's sport, but women's sport. But a lot of girls dropped out of sport at the 13, 14, 15 age, which is always difficult anyway to retain them. But they didn't go back, and they're like, oh, I just feel embarrassed going back. Oh, I've missed a year. I've missed 2 years of training. And I was like, stop. I did not start until I was 23. Like, you've so much time. And I think it's realising that it is never too late to go back to something or to try something, or look, what's the worst that can happen? You'll be bad at it and you can just go back to just your normal life again, you know. Whereas if you just try it, at least you say, well, like, I gave it a go, I didn't like it, or I gave it a go and I actually love it, I'm going to stay doing it. But having the fear of not even trying is something that I find a lot of people, especially women in sport, when they drop out, it's the kind of you don't want to embarrass yourself, you don't want to not be good at something, which is hard, and it's making yourself, I suppose, be vulnerable in a situation. And like, I'll admit, it wasn't easy to change over. I went from being good at something to really bad at something, but I suppose that's just a mindset as well. And I suppose the cherry at the end of it was that I got to potentially play for Ireland, so it was a nice draw. And the potential as well with yours is that you got to live a professional lifestyle. Like, there was a benefit at the end of it, but it wasn't easy. But I suppose the moral there is that you're never too old to start something new.
I was going to say, what was the thing that kind of drove you to keep trying? Because, again, it'd be very easy. Like, I grew up in a household where my brother was, and he still is, one of those annoying people, picks up whatever sport he wants to pick up and he's good at it. Even sports that I'm like, this is my sport, and then he'll try it and I'm like, stop it.
That's Ailish now.
But like, obviously growing up, you've kind of mentioned there that Eimear would, if anyone was going to put money on either of you becoming a professional athlete, it would have been Eimear. But it ended up being you, and Eimear says you've overtaken her in terms of like where you've gotten to. But what was that like, being the younger sister, you know, not being picked, being handed the number 16 jersey, and then what kind of made you go, no, I want to keep going? Because there are so many people out there, boys and girls, who would be like, well, if I'm not good enough to get on to the starting, 15 or the starting 11 or the starting whatever, I'll just stay at home.
Yeah, I guess in relation to her and, being the star of the two, is I think my personality probably helped a lot in that, because I really only had pride. Like, when I used to see her play and be the star, when I couldn't be it myself, I could always fall under that shadow of knowing that, well, she's my sister, so that's, partially me. And I guess
you're happy with that.
I was just happy with that. I was happy to be like associated with that, because like I knew how close we were and always were, and I guess I can claim some bit of credit as a younger child that, I was the one that kept kicking the ball at her head, and she eventually put her hands up to catch it. It took a while, but it happened.
I was useless at that.
So I just felt immense, I guess, pride associated with being her sister, and even if I didn't play myself, which and on a more personal, I guess, for me it was frustrating. It was constantly a downer. Like, probably behind it all, I knew I was good enough physically, or skillfully. I knew I was good enough, but and probably just immense stubbornness. I have a very stubborn streak.
You do,
within me, and I think knowing, I don't have very much self-belief, and I had quite low self-belief at that stage of my career, all the way up along. But I think that internal, like, little flame that knew that I'm skillful enough, I know that I'm good enough, and I'm probably, more skillful than a lot of players on the field. But, as you progress to get older, fitness becomes an issue, and it was my issue, and I wasn't making teams because I wasn't fit enough or fast enough, and I was told multiple times that was the reason. So I think I just needed someone to probably believe in me and kind of coach me in a way that
stuck to your strengths.
Yeah, rather than focus constantly on my weaknesses. And I think I went through the motions, and probably the majority of people that I played with on those Clare teams up along that were sitting on the bench with me, they stopped playing come under 14, under 16 and minors. They just weren't there anymore. So eventually did make my spot because we were short players. And I think once I did, and had a couple of good games and proved my point a little bit, I think that probably gave me a little bit of confidence. And I think separating from you going to college was probably another thing I didn't want to do at the time, but it was probably a good thing for me because she went to UL and started there, and I went to Tralee, and a smaller college, and definitely we did a lot of running in our pre-season, and it was probably good for me to have football in Camogie all year round, so I had, like most people, put on
You
weight.
kind of went as a nobody down to Tralee.
Yeah, I was your sister, but that was about it. No one really kind of knew who I was or what I could do. And I think that, I kind of had to start from scratch and prove myself all over again in a very different way. And in my first year of college, I think I played in the forwards, and then come second, third and fourth, I was midfield. So I was completely transformed in terms of fitness levels.
But it came from the coach, like having value in you. As
could see potential in what I could give, and could see the skill level that I probably knew that I had, but probably couldn't get out because no one showed belief or in that.
But you were stuck in corner forward, which meant like you weren't able to show off the distribution skills or the catching skills or the, I suppose, awareness skills
or
you
the
had.
reading of the game.
But then when he put you midfield, he could see that those skills were way more important, and I suppose you had to run more at midfield. You had to get your cardiovascular
and of course,
fitness
what I was studying was health and leisure, so it was a natural progression from learning all about health and fitness, and then also implementing it on the football field. And I think I fell in love with health and fitness from there and then, and it's been absolutely part of every day since then. And that was certainly something that drove me on, and that little belief in me from external people, I think, made a big difference in my career at that stage. And
because it wasn't just mum saying you were good.
Yeah, because your mother will tell you you're good anyway, even if you're not. She'll keep telling you are. So yeah, and then it wasn't just on the field. I actually got awards. I got scholarships. These things were been given to me after my time in Tralee, and it was just that external recognition for something I wasn't used to. Like, I would never get player of the match trophies. Like, she would have a stall of them. Like, you don't have room for all the ones she had. Whereas I was lucky to get a starting jersey. Like, that was, as much as I could hope for. So I think, the hard work certainly did. And there was a lot of hard work, and there was, it certainly did pay off at that stage. And I think I had a new confidence going in, and then went on to UL and played a bit more sport there at a next level again, and probably felt like a bit of an outsider and like a bit worried that I wasn't going to make the team, because UL is really high standard and she would have played there, and there was a bit of a legacy there behind that. But some incredible training that went on there, and then I started to make my place on the county team week in, week out, with very little question whether I'd be in the team. So like that certainty was something that was really strange as well. And it was just a whole lot of hard work and constant focus on getting fitness better and getting strength better, and just constantly working hard at it, and been my entire life. And then I kind of I got a few lucky breaks which also helps.
I think though, like, people talk about luck as, they say, oh, this happened, but you have to be willing to, there are definitely instances in people's lives where an opportunity is presented to them, and that could be seen as being very lucky. You could be in the right place at the right time, but unless you think, well, I'm going to give it a go, you can let that luck pass you by. So I always say to people, like, yes, things might happen unexpectedly, and from the outside in, it's a lucky thing. But if it wasn't for your approach to that situation, you could be like, oh no, I wouldn't be, I wouldn't be good enough to try it. So,
but that's it. If it's not an opportunity taken by you, someone else will take it.
Exactly.
Someone else will get that contract. Someone else will get that jersey. So it's never a missed opportunity, because someone else will take it if you don't. And it's the bravery, I suppose, to go and try it.
And like you mentioned before, the kind of vulnerability of like, this is a lucky break. You have to be willing to step into outside of your comfort zone, into that vulnerable space, because if you don't, then someone else will take it on. And that's not to put the pressure on that you have to take every single opportunity that is ever presented to you. But I think more people need to take more credit for themselves when it comes to these lucky breaks. So that's what I'm saying to you, Ailish. Don't sell yourself short. But it's really interesting to hear that, like, you personally said that you didn't have a lot of self-belief and it potentially came from an outside source that saw some value in you, looked to your strengths and encouraged you to then start believing in yourself.
Yeah.
Whereas Eimear, would you say you would have been fairly confident growing up, or was it something that a similar situation to Ailish, or?
No, we were completely different.
Yeah.
Like, I knew I was good. If people told me I was bad, I probably was like, no, I know I'm still good. Like, I had this ridiculous self-confidence. But I suppose it came from, like, past performances, past experiences, that I knew I can score this from this angle. I'll take the shot. I've done it before. It was, you know, it's high self-efficacy that I think I always had, because I had done the hard work. It's not like you said, it's not luck. I trained hard. I practiced at it. I always wanted to be the best, high standards of myself. But also I knew in the past that I'd had, you know, I'd potential to do this because I've done it in the past, and I was driven and motivated internally. I didn't really care about what other people thought about me, really. On the field, I kind of just knew that I had the confidence myself to be that person and to be the best and want to be the best. And I was valued as well on the outside of teams. Like, I was picked, you know, like there wasn't a question that I was going to make a team. Whatever team it was, I think there was like twice in my entire life I've sat on a bench.
Yeah.
Like, it's a completely different experience from myself and Ailish, like really completely different experience. And it's just bizarre because we did everything together. We didn't, like, we got the exact same food, clothes, bedtimes, sleeps. It just shows that personality is everything. Like, we're completely different people, and we got the exact same upbringing and opportunities and treatment.
Yeah.
And we're just completely different people.
Yeah. And I think that's, again, I would say the same myself and my brother. He was always and has always been a very confident person, or that's how I viewed him. Whereas I'd probably be a little bit more like Ailish and kind of be doubting myself, or, you know, kind of questioning, like looking for someone else to be like, no, you're actually okay at this, or, you know. So it is interesting that you can grow up, be in the exact same environment. It doesn't mean you're going to have the same path. But I can't imagine that when you were younger, you had the awareness or the insight to be like, that's maybe a difference between us. But if you could give a young Ailish some tips on what you know now, and even what you know of her, like kind of from your own experiences, is there anything you would say to someone like Ailish who's like maybe not as confident or doesn't have that self-belief, or that you wish you could even go backwards and say at 14, 15 what you could say to your younger sister?
Yeah, I think it's what you said a while ago about you found the coach that finally focused on what you were good at, instead of focusing always on your fitness, or focusing on, which is the feedback. If feedback you would have got in the past would have been negative, you're bad at this. Maybe that comes down to the coaching style, but also I think if you could really focus on your positives, like to build confidence and focus on what you're good at, make them your super strengths, and eventually your confidence will build because you're getting better at what you're already good at. I suppose just there's no point, so believe in what you have, that is enough to make a team. And what, like, not everyone is good at everything, you know, but stop looking at the negatives and look at the good things, because there is always good things in whatever it is, whether it's life or whether it's your ability in sport or whether it's your ability in school. There's always, like, you were never good at Irish, but you were very good at art. And maybe Mam would have been like focusing on the bad of how bad you were at Irish, but she wasn't that bad at art. You actually were. You were actually pretty bad at it. But you probably heard more about that at home than how good you were at art or how good you were at text drawing and stuff. Whereas I suppose just focus on focus on the positives.
And that's definitely something that it's easier said than done. I have to say that we're very quick, and even I think you said it earlier, that in Ireland we're very slow to give people compliments unless, you know, unfortunately, unless it's like you're leaving or it's someone's wake for like literally stuff. But you hold it in, and it's like it's kind of a practice, a habit to build, to be like either looking at yourself and going, no, I've done that well, or even saying it out loud to the people who are important to you as well. But just to I've kind of glossed over all of these questions because we've had such a good conversation. But I suppose I want to know, is there a big life lesson that you've learned, or if you can look back you've had, Eimear, you've been in rugby since 2013. You've been obviously on the Clare dual player for much longer. Same with you, Ailish. You've both played sport all the way through college, all the way through school, underage, and 2018 you became professional. Like we were saying, time has just kind of gone really quickly. But through that period, what was the biggest life lesson that you learned, or even beyond that, that kind of brought you to where you got to, that kind of influenced you? What would you say that was?
I would probably say to give every opportunity a go, in that if it works out, it's great. If it doesn't, your life really won't change that much. And at least you can say that you tried it. And if you don't at least try it, you might always live with the regret of, well, what if I did this, or what if I said yes, or answered that phone call, or responded to that email about this opportunity and that. There's nothing, you're not going to lose anything by trying something. And that was me with rugby, but it's trying anything. There's no right time. You could be planning things like forever and ever, and there's no right time to do things, whether it's like a moving job or a new opportunity or setting up that new business, or you can time things to perfection and it still mightn't be the right time. So it's just taking the opportunity when it comes, as opposed to planning for everything, because that's not how real life works out.
And was there anything that gave you that lesson, or was it a light bulb moment that you had because of a certain situation, or was it something that someone said to you, or what happened there?
I suppose with the rugby, it was never a goal, never a dream of mine. And I very early on was kind of struggling with the game and with the training and with work and that. And Mum just said, no, look, give it a go. And I think you need someone as well. Sometimes you doubt yourself all the time. You doubt yourself. You doubt your abilities. You have imposter syndrome. You're playing an Ireland squad and never thrown a rugby ball. You doubt yourself so often, and you just need somebody in your ear just to say, no, keep at it, or it'll be worth it, or try it a little bit longer. Not pressure. It wasn't like Mum put pressure on me to do, but I think she realised that it was too soon to judge if you're going to be good or bad. Don't just give up straight away. You're never good at anything. You just forget how bad you were. Like we played the piano, and I'm sure we were pretty bad at the start. We're not great now, but we, and same with football. I was awful. Like Ailish tells the story about her kicking the ball at my face. The amount of times the ball hit my face and I went in crying, didn't want to play with her anymore. But I eventually learned.
That's very accurate.
I eventually learned.
There's that skill coming in there.
She was very accurate at it, yeah. But I was useless. And you forget that just because you're 23 being bad, you have a tendency to give up quicker. Whereas 4-year-old, 5-year-old me went in and cried about 10 times before I realised, put your hands up and catch the ball. And then it won't happen again. But you forget that you're bad at everything that you start at.
Yeah.
And that it is going to take time, and have patience with it.
Yeah. And what about you, Ailish? Would you say, what was your kind of biggest life lesson? And
it's probably pretty similar to what you said. But probably another thing for me was I always tried very hard. I always tried really, really hard to make everything, to do everything that I did, to do everything right, to learn as much as I could, and probably put so much pressure on myself all the time to be, better, and my head would get in the way all of the time when I play. There'd be games where I just wouldn't show up.
Yeah.
Be absent. I'd be there in person, and nothing would go my way or nothing would go right, and there was many days that it happened. And
Mum said she wasn't going to go back. Mum said she was never going to go to her match ever again if she played the way she played one day.
Yeah, she tried. Yeah, I was playing a camogie game with Tralee.
It was a final or something. It was a big game.
It didn't really. I think we had won the game, or it didn't really matter. I think we were through it. It was something anyway, and I just didn't play well, or didn't show up. I don't know what it was, but she would get back to me after. But I think I definitely had a lot of games where I was so frustrated by the end of it because nothing happened and I couldn't get into it, or so many things just didn't go my way. And I think I used to let that get on top of me, and I think as I got older, especially with Clare, I had the outside pressures of not having to worry about being on the team, because I know I had earned my spot, that I was going to be on, somewhere in the forward line or midfield. And I think I just needed to get beyond that phase of worrying about my performance and worrying about how I was going to play and just play. And I think that came, and it's not a lack of care or stop caring about the game or stop caring, but it was just a bit of a letting go of the pressure and the expectations and just going out and playing. And that was something that took ages to come, like years. It was probably in my last 2-3 years of playing.
Yeah, do you remember the game in Croke Park? They got to the All-Ireland Intermediate final, and you'd actually had pretty poor performances up to then.
Yeah, pretty
because
average.
her aim for the season was to get to an All-Ireland final in Croke Park. Because you'd never played in Croke Park.
Yeah.
And then finally, when you won the semi-final, the shackles were off, and you had a fantastic performance in Croke Park.
Yeah.
Because the aim, you'd got there.
Yeah, I was there.
The pressure of getting there.
I got through the training sessions. I knew that on Sunday that we were going to be playing in Croke Park, and that was it. You know, so whatever happened after that didn't matter. It was
just had fun then.
Yeah,
and you had a great game.
Yeah, it was just walking on Croke Park, and that was it, and great. Like that was the goal. If we won, lost, obviously it mattered, but you know that wasn't really part of the process or the plan. So yeah, I went out and played probably one of my best games for Clare, and you know scored a goal, and you know, but we did lose by a point at the end. But you know,
but you were still happy.
It's still a massive memory in my sporting career that you know I'll always cherish, because it was the first time and only time so far that I've played in Croker. So I think that was probably a real like learning curve that you know I really didn't focus on the game. I was just in the process that happened, and I think I had a lot of that in my first season of AFL, where because I was just so probably ignorant to what the game was and what I was supposed to do, and you know the style of play, and I think all the unknown probably helped me kind of play a little bit better in my first season. Probably outplayed what I should have done really, and played more games than what was definitely expected. And then in season two and 3, I was so overwhelmed by what I didn't know, because I was so hyper aware of the game and how it should be played and all the things that I didn't know and the structures and everything. And I got back into the phase of overthinking, and I was like, what have I done? I've left where I was, you know, perfectly happy to go out in the field, play the game of my life and walk off again and not have to worry about it in Gaelic football. And now I'm here overthinking everything again. And I think season 4 and season 5, I kind of threw the shackles off, especially season 4. Didn't get much games because I had a hammy injury this year. But season 4 for me, I just like, I knew what I knew and I didn't know what I didn't know, and that was it. And I went and played football, and you know, I was able to play my role. I was able to secure my spot week in, week out for, you know, a premiership winning side. So like it was, again, it took a while, but it was something that I had to look back on, that I had learned previously to essentially stop caring so much and stop putting so much pressure on. And it's probably something you've been able to do.
Yeah, like with the big games, like a lot of people flop in big games, but
Yeah.
my mindset around big matches is, why do you bother training at 6 o'clock in the morning, doing a gym session, or training in the mud on a winter's night to play badly on the big day?
Yeah.
So my thing is like, why get nervous? Why get anxiety? Why? And I know it's easier said than done, and I actually don't get nervous for matches.
I don't either. Yeah, that's something that we've both
because it's like, well, I'm here
nervous
to show everyone just how much I've trained and just how much I'm.
Yeah.
So like I don't really get nervous the big day.
Yeah, if you could bottle that and sell it,
Yeah.
you guys would be millionaires for sure.
Yeah.
You both mentioned your mum being, and the amount of nuggets of wisdom that your mum has kind of shared with you over the years, and that you've consequently shared with us through Tackle Your Feelings, Eimear. But she sounds like a massive support that you guys had. But I'm just wondering, like, was there anyone else, or you can obviously talk about how much more support she gave you and how much belief, or even the little kicks up the arse of not coming back to a game if you keep playing that way. But like growing up, who were your support networks, or who were your kind of the group of people that you potentially leaned on for both the good and the bad stuff? And are you the type of people who have the same supports now, or how is that, you know, evolved or kind of gone in since kind of making your way through? And I know I keep piling these questions on, but even Ailish, like, have you ever felt, were there any supports that kind of, when you got those professional contracts or you went to Australia, did you find any resentment from any people who you thought kind of would have previously been happy for you and then things changed or anything like that?
To be honest, not really. I think for me, because I was kind of the surprise package, like in terms of, like we said earlier, if it was anyone to get a contract, it would have been you. Everyone would have thought you would have got it. So I think people were mostly genuinely happy that, you know, I had managed to get a contract to go and play professionally. And I think a lot of people that really knew me knew how hard I work and how much, I guess, I had given to, you know, our club football and county football, you know, in the lead up to it. Now, obviously, I had to miss a county final, which was quite hard, to go for the trials, which, you know, was probably, you know, difficult for the club to understand at that stage, because, you know, I was missing a county final for essentially nothing at the time. But I guess coming home with a contract kind of made that a little bit easier to understand when it happened. And I think after that, people kind of only wished me well and that kind of thing. But it's been, we came back and played the year after, and won a county final. But it's been hard to kind of balance the two since then, because, you know, even with COVID and, you know, the difficulty getting over and back to Australia during that time, and, you know, I kind of put a lot of pressure on if I got injured or anything like that happened. You know, I had to make a call that I couldn't play club, and, you know, it's hard to take when, you know, some of your better players can't play for your club, and it's hard to obviously watch on and not be able to be part of that. So there was a couple of difficult times around that, and not being able to do that for the club, and, you know, for them not having, you know, the best players possible play for them. So, but I think.
And so who supported you in those kind of, like you said, they are difficult decisions for you to make. So who would be the people who you kind of would go, like, because we all have those people who are like, is this the right decision? Yeah,
well, I guess I always looked to Eimear and to Mam and Keith and as family, and like they were always kind of the moral compass, and or the ones that would have your back.
We always say that, like, we probably have a smaller friends group at home because we had each other. If we went like out or for training, or if we went to the cinema, or if we did anything, it was just, we had each other. We had instant friends. So we have probably a small friends group when it comes to home, because we always had each other. So
and a couple, like, we don't have close very friends, small, like, you know, close friends based at home, and then I've got a couple that I've had from college. I've got 3 main friends that I've had since I was in college in Limerick, and you've got a couple that you've had since college. So, like, yeah, we don't have a broad range. Like, we've obviously lots of friendships, like, from different clubs and different teams that we've played along, but very probably small.
I probably have to mention my husband. He'll kill me if I don't.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that guy.
Yeah, he's the reasoning behind a lot of decisions, or if there's like anything, it's you've 1 or 2 people that you go to about, like, you'd ring Mam, ring Dean, and ring you, whatever. It's depends on the situation and who's involved and where we are. If you're at home, generally you won't catch Ailish on the other side of the world, because she's the worst for contact. So if it was an urgent issue, I wouldn't be ringing Ailish in Australia, because she's really bad for contact. But it depends, I suppose, on the situation.
Yeah. And that's kind of been pretty constant then, that you've had, you know, each other. You've had your brother, you've had your mum, and then obviously since Dean came along, he's been there as well.
Yeah.
But, and I think it's good to kind of point that out, because there's often a misconception for a lot of people that we need to have, like, the people with all of the friends are the luckier ones. And it's not to say that they're not, but it's the quality relationships that are going to keep you through, and, like, you know, that you can ask those questions of, that are like, am I making the right decision? And they'll genuinely have your best interests at heart. And I'm sure you do, well, like, you've referenced each other a lot, but I'm sure you do the same for each other. So would you say you're very honest with each other? You're kind of the biggest supporters, but would you be able to take criticism in a nice, or like
a nice way?
Like, how
question.
Do you ever get into like big fights or anything like that, or disagreements, or is it kind of
I'd be pretty real with Ailish.
A lot of the time, yeah, she's pretty real most of the time.
Yeah. We're very different personalities, as you can see.
Yeah.
But no, you're good for compliments. I'm probably good for the reality check.
Non-compliments.
Yeah, the reality check side of things there. And then we compliment each other well. But
and your mum obviously is seems like she's a bit of both.
mix
She's the mix then. She's got the soft side of things, but then
sometimes.
and then she can go harsh sometimes as well. So she's the balance really that you need.
Yeah. And then, so I'll ask you one more question of the big questions, as they say, because I know we've been chatting for a good bit now. But obviously, I know with sport, and especially with women's sport, Ailish, you were lucky to be contracted professionally. Eimear, you've maintained a career as a school teacher the whole way through. But I always ask, like, what did you want to be when you were growing up? And what do you want to be now?
When you grow up?
Good question.
Yeah. Ailish, when you grow up, what do you want to be when you grow up?
It's a very good question. That's a question I've struggled with since I was young. I think I've always had a love for sport, and I think growing up I was always outside kicking around, doing anything, pretending to be a professional soccer player or pretending to be a professional tennis player or pretending we were in Wimbledon.
Like before there was even women who were professionals, Ailish wanted to be a professional anything.
That was just,
anything.
Yeah, just any sport that I could pretend to be professional at. So I think really that was kind of where my aims were, and I think
which it was completely unrealistic, like in our eyes.
Yeah, like actually dreamer, in the sense. But
look at you now.
Yeah, no, and it did actually come true. So, and now I think, oh wow, this is also another.
It's going to be on camera now, so that everyone's going to know what you say here.
This is one of those real conversations that Eimear has with me about, what you need to be when you grow up.
It is an unfortunate thing that you're once you get into your kind of mid-30s, you're seen as that's it. Yeah. Like especially for the sports that you play, and I know there's always exceptions to the rule, like Lindsay Peat is still playing.
And I'm looking at Cora.
Exactly.
Like obviously for now and for the next couple of years, the plan is to continue playing if that's possible. But I guess after that, I am lucky that I have done my time at college and have got my degrees and stuff. So it certainly is a good base to start from. But I think from what I'm passionate about, and that's sport, health, fitness, it's more than likely going to be something down that road. Now it could be something completely different altogether, but I think right now where I'm at, I think it's probably something down along those lines. But
like, would you get into coaching, or would you
potentially? Yeah, and like that could be any sport. That could be in high performance, it could be in AFL, it could be football, camogie, and I guess it could even be rugby. I could probably do something, contribute to something towards that, but it could be anything at this stage. I think I've got a broad enough scope of sports at this stage that it could be anything, and obviously I would love to see women's sport become a lot more equal in every sport, not just AFL, not just rugby, not just football, camogie. Everything should be on par in my eyes at this stage, where male female shouldn't make a difference. It should be the same all around for everything, if that's work, sport, in society. So I think if it has to be women's sport where I start off and try and build pathways to make that a more equal thing, it would be something I would be interested in too. But yeah, there's a broad scope of things that I always say I'm a jack of all trades, master of none, because I've a lot of different skills and talents, as you'd say. But yeah, just to try and narrow the focus is something that I find hard to do unless I'm kind of just plopped into something and then just go from there. And
how about you? Would you think obviously
I'm the
teacher,
absolute opposite then. Like, I had a plan that I wanted to be a teacher my entire life. And I just worked. I just wanted to be a teacher. Like, I literally knew that I wanted to be a PE teacher from, I think it was like 5th year LCVP, but to do like a research project on like a career opportunity. And I wanted to be...
I think I might have skipped that module.
A PE teacher, yeah. I think you might have been missing for that. I wonder what you actually did it on. Your career investigation.
I don't remember doing it.
And yeah, like I had to research like the points and the course needed and everything. And like I was adamant I was going to UL because at the time it was, I think, the only college that did PE. So I was like, I'm not going anywhere else. I didn't put any other course down in any other college.
And they were a good football team.
And they played O'Connor Cup, which was like one of the, that I never actually won an O'Connor Cup, which is an Ailish did. After going back and like, I was like, of course you did. So like we literally tried so hard. Yeah, and an Ashburn, a camogie college one.
O'Connor Cup and Ashburn.
like my aim was like
Cheeky.
be a PE teacher.
Late bloomer.
I was
That's
going to say, Eimear can take all of
bloomer.
those like player of the match
Yeah.
and stuff, and Ailish has the other
Yeah, like I've literally
front
won
and
nothing
centre.
really, like in the grand scheme of things, like
You've all the personal accolades, and I've won the collective.
Yeah.
Been part of the crew.
which kind of sums us both up as well, because I would be very driven towards like my own goals, and you were happy to be
Team
a team player
Yeah.
in that.
So do you think like you can see yourself staying a PE teacher until?
Yeah, I love it. I really
retirement
do,
kind of
and
thing?
like I love teaching girls. I love the fact that I can be like a role model and impact in their lives. In the sporting world, I think it's a nice link to be a PE teacher and an athlete at the same time, or just promotion of female sports in general. I just am passionate about it, and I suppose giving people opportunities that they never really knew they could do, or give them the belief in that as well. So yeah, my path is kind of I'm going to plan along my path at the moment.
Yours is just like this, and mine is just like.
Yeah, I suppose you could look at it and say it's quite boring, and Ailish is very adventurous, and you don't know what the next door is going to open, but that would give me sort of panic that I couldn't plan something out.
But again, I think it's just so interesting that you have two sisters who, like you said before, Eimear, given exactly the same opportunities, brought up in the same environment, similar life experiences, obviously slightly different ages or whatever. Two very different personalities, but like, you know, you're still successful in your own ways, and you're still yourselves in your, like, I know that's a very obvious statement, you're yourselves in your own ways. Like there doesn't come across the idea of, like, Ailish, you've always been proud of Eimear, but you've never wanted to be her in that, or that's what I'm picking up, like that there wasn't that kind of jealousy or the envy of like, why is this not happening for me? And same with Eimear, you're like, you know, you're very proud of what your sister has done. And the joke of it, you know, Ailish winning all of these cups and trophies and stuff for their teams. But I'm sure there's immense pride in what you've both achieved for each other. And I'm sure for your brother as well, like even I could hear it when you were talking about him playing.
Yeah, he's sick of being known as Eimear and Ailish's brother.
But he was the first one to play.
But very proud.
Claire.
Very proud at the same time.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So I think we're done with the big questions. So I want to say thanks again for giving such incredible answers to those. What we'll do is we'll finish up with our quick fire round. So instead of asking you both the same question, I'll kind of alternate between the two. So just to finish up with these short, quick questions. So whatever you think, first thing to come to mind, that's what we want to hear. So Ailish, I'll go with you first. Staying in or going out?
Staying in.
That's not even a question.
Eimear, would you rather read a book or watch a movie?
Movie.
Ailish, would you talk about it or think about it?
Think about it.
I'm actually going to ask the same. Eimear, what would you think?
I would absolutely talk about it.
Of course.
Eimear, time alone or time with friends?
Depends on the mood.
It depends on the mood. It really does depend on the mood. Yeah, more with friends. Maybe with friends.
Ailish, would you listen to a podcast or a playlist?
Podcast.
Eimear, cooking for yourself or ordering a takeaway?
Takeaway. Yeah.
Ailish, what was your favourite childhood TV show? If you can remember. Were you too busy outside playing school?
Yeah, we never really were allowed to watch TV, and we only had
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, and 4, so we never really had.
Oh, we didn't.
We
Yeah.
had the tape on. Our nanny used to record like cartoons on it, like a cassette tape.
Yeah,
I don't know what they were
VHS.
called.
Probably Tom and Jerry or something. Yeah, like I don't know. We really didn't watch that much television.
Yeah,
we weren't
we
really
didn't.
allowed.
We
Yeah,
didn't really
just
watch much.
kicked balls at each other's faces.
Yeah, we were lucky to
instead.
be allowed to watch The Simpsons, and we got to secondary school in our like 6th class.
Yeah, she banned us watching The Simpsons.
Yeah.
That was pretty common in
Yeah,
like growing up,
thought
wasn't it?
so.
That people just weren't allowed to watch
Yeah.
The Simpsons. So random. Ailish, what's your nickname and why?
Swish.
What's
Well,
the
Ducky.
Yeah, but that's only like a family one.
Yeah.
The Swish one is kind of more publicly known now.
Where does that come
They
from?
struggled with Ailish
Ah,
in Australia. I didn't have a nickname before I went to Australia in terms of like a sporting, but Australia has to give everything a nickname.
of course.
Yeah. So Ailish was hard for some people to say and to remember. So they were kind of trying to think of something along the lines of Lish or Swish, and then someone just like Swish, Swishy, and then That's where it
That was
came from. So it's nothing to do with me being fast or being good at basketball. It's just
easier.
just
to pronounce.
easier swish. So it was like, it could have been a lot worse.
Do you have any nicknames, Eimear?
No, like I have awful ones because like my college friends were really mean and they used to call me Pansy Concy because I used to wear a pink bandana and I had white boots, socks pulled up, and friends, I was pretty fancy. And then the Eimear. So like I couldn't like I've got the worst one. So it's
swish is good.
so it like that has probably gone away, the Eimear, but it surfaces every so often when people remember.
We have a mug at home to remind you.
Yeah, Keith, my brother, got me a mug of me in that Air ad, and then it wrote the Eimear on it. So like, there's a mug that is evidence there as well. But
and as soon as this comes out, people will start calling you.
I'll be back again. But yeah.
What's your favourite food, Ailish?
Peanut butter.
Peanut butter. Eimear, what was your favourite subject in school?
PE.
And then, do either of you have a hidden talent?
Ailish's very good at singing. Really good at singing.
Is that...
Yeah.
Is it really good?
Yeah, she's really good at singing.
Okay, break out and
Cut.
Yeah, that's perfect.
We all play music, but...
Yeah, you got to grade 8 in the piano, so you can play pretty fluently.
That's pretty impressive.
Yeah, like that was then. That was a long time ago. Yeah. We haven't time for it at the moment. That's it.
Yeah, I can draw. That's about it. Yeah.
Great. Well, again, thank you so much for joining me today and for all of your really insightful answers to those questions, and really enjoyed having a chat.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having us.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Tackle Your Feelings podcast. To find out more info about the topics discussed and for tips on your own positive mental well-being, as well as information about and how to sign up to the Tackle Your Feelings Schools programme, please visit tackleyourfeelings.com.